the move from a rule-based approach, that can be knowledge-based approach plus rule-based, or rule-based pure, or kind of this other thing, but the rule-based approach with dictionaries and grammar, okay? That was done for decades. That moved to a statistical approach and commercially in about 2009, though we were doing it 10 years before, in research institutes and things like that, even 10 years before. So about 2009, it became kind of public getting productized, with Language Weaver, and Language Weaver was pretty much the first person who went out there, and they got bought out by SDL in 2009. So no, that was a little bit earlier. So it's a little bit earlier, in about 2003, 2004, Language Weaver, and then it became Neural MT. I will say that this move from rule-based to statistical and then the neural has had some negative effects. Okay, I'm going to be very bold and say this, because the hype of the whole statistical based MT and the neural MT has really focused on big data corpus, based type of MT, which makes that more important than the small projects. So yes, I will say that there are many cases where big data, big corpus, kind of MT for non-budgeted internal content. So the whole thing is about you got budgeted content where you can do translation. You have non-budgeted content, and you always want to leverage these MT providers. What they're trying to do is they're trying to leverage the budget that they have for the budget they can get for translation. They're trying to leverage out for not only the budgeted content, but the non-budgeted content too, which is a lot of internal translation. They're trying to leverage that cost over everything. Because there's not enough budget for translation, because the salespeople aren't selling it right. Okay, so this comes down to it. It's just this whole cycle here. It's a vicious cycle. So the focus of these MT providers, they're trying to help leverage that minimum, or the customers too. They're trying to leverage the minimum amount of that limited budget across to cover a larger amount of the unbudgeted translation. And that unbudgeted translation is growing 30% a year. I mean, survey work on, I was hearing this, and I had asked a lot of people back 25 years ago. Everybody was saying, even 30 years ago, our unbudgeted translation is, the request coming is 30% more per year, and you just can't add 30% more budget and like that if people aren't selling it right. And it's all about sales pitching too. It's all about pitching too, and internal companies, even the buyer companies, maybe they are struggling the budget because they don't know how to actually show the value. And this is a hard thing, and I made some videos on these things, but trying to go through these, make another videos on that topic too, about giving value and visibility to language topics. But the reality is that the big projects of internal training and news and corporate news and all these things that can use a content adjusting approach. These they don't really dominate the industry. They're there. But the smaller projects really dominate the industry in the translation for publication industry, okay? Because this is where the inbound and outbound, and inbound, inward, and outward really plays thing here. What's really key is for the inbound and inward translation. Google does this, or Microsoft. Google Translate and Microsoft Translator. There's just the number of views that get done for just inbound purposes, just gets information. It's just phenomenal. Number of people that just use the Google Translate app or whatever, or any of these apps, or the websites or anything. It's just phenomenal. It's just grown. It's just blown up. I wrote an article in Language International, or International Journal in Language and Documentation back in 2003. I haven't even got it here, but I mean, it's in my list of publications. But I talked about the internet online thing, and I gave some statistics back then. That was a long time ago. It's just huge now. So this inward one is one thing, but now if you want to leverage it for the translation of publication needs, that's where there are budgets specified. You're trying to leverage the same budget for two different purposes, and this is going to just not always work. And the reality is, some of the bigger projects where it is budgeted, they're going to be broken up and split up into smaller projects anyways. And the reality in our field of the translation for production, for publication purpose, outbound purpose, the smaller projects are what dominate the overall industry. All these projects between 3 to 5,000 words and 30,000 words. About 7,500 is probably an average. Okay, that's the majority of of all the jobs that are coming out, all over the place. I mean, you're glad to get a 150,000 word project. It's all these little account things that you can, project bidding and transition project bidding and all that stuff. So the whole industry is dominated by this, smaller projects. But the whole hype has been on corpus-based big data, SMT, NMT stuff. Whereas in reality, you don't have to have that for smaller projects. You can use an RBMT, rule-based machine translation system. I've done several examples, lots of publication on how to do this, and even did a pros session on this one time too. At another one of the another session at the Prosian, like one of my sessions on it, on how to use MT efficiently or something, in 2014ish. That probably have my YouTube channel too. So I'm saying that because I'm going to come to the point here is that the reason that the shift was stated to be about the whole thing was the whole hype thing was rule-based machine translation not scalable for a large project. Okay, well, that's not really true because I've actually done a lot of articles to show that I've actually done this and I can do this and it can be done. But then people say, yeah, but it's not really scalable for all the internal and non-budget stuff. Okay, well, I can understand why you're pitching that way, but it's not always true. But I can understand why people are pitching that way because they're trying to get the whole. You can't make dictionaries basically for everything. Okay, I can understand that. But just read my article on translatorscafe.com in 2006 June about improved translation quality with machine translation dictionary building. I just explain it, how it can be done, and you can actually do things that are scalable, and you can be highly productive, and it can be done. And I give examples of how you can do this quickly in a short period of time. Um, uh, so rule-based systems actually can and should be used, in my opinion, for a lot of the smaller projects, because you don't need to use them for the bigger projects. Don't apply. Okay, if you got a lot of little projects of between 2,000 words, even 500 to 1,000 words, up to like 6,000 to 20,000, 30,000 words, you use a rule-based system. I mean, don't be using a statistic-based system or a neural. It's just not worth it. But in that transition from the rule-based, non-scalable approach, it was thrown out in many cases as, well, it's no longer good. It's no longer a good approach. That's not true. It's just that luckily, a few providers have kind of rebaptized it or renamed it or rebranded it, calling it hybrid MT or calling it multi-engine MT. And luckily they've been able to deal with, handle that. But it's just, there's been too much of a focus on just the statistical and neural stuff. Because it doesn't really apply to a lot of the projects that you're doing for. It's great for again, content gisting, inbound and inward. It's not really going to be as efficient because of the issues of terminology and because you can't train those systems on terminology. Not always true, but it just has been a history of not being able to train them on terminology and vocabulary, custom. And so that just makes it difficult. This has created a break really in the created back in the feedback loop. So there have been several. I've written published software reviews, okay, in several magazines. Back in, I did one in Language International in 2001 on the Reverser Pro 4. Then in 2002, I did one on Reverser Pro 5 and Reverser Expert in Multilingual Computing Magazine in 2002. Then I did another one, Sistran for Premium in 2003. And in 2004, Thomas Westmer and I did a combined kind of project review or software review of Prompt version 6, Expert XT, and Prompt Professional. They combined one in 2004 in Multilingual Computing Magazine. There are lots of examples of software reviews where you can show the features that are allowed to have built-in, immediate, interactive feedback and improvement features for the linguist doing the work, the post editor doing the work, and you can get immediate fixes, immediate things. You don't have to wait for a whole training cycle of a whole big data system. Okay, this was done. It's all this has been published, and I've given productivity reports on this, so and articles, and shown how I did it, and even did that Prodigy thing. So the video. I mean, this has been done. It can be done. It's really applicable to Shmolet. So really, we're just trying to bring back terms like human in the loop, MT and modern MT, and all these kinds of things. And it's really not. It's not. It's already there. It's already been done. It's totally scalable and it works. And it will work for your small projects. It doesn't matter if you're not doing 10 million word projects. It doesn't matter. So that move that MT at RBM, the rule-based to statistical SMT, we remove what would happened is the downside of all this is we remove the ability for a normal linguist translator, post editor to do post editing tasks and to be directly involved and responsible for the dictionary creation and applying creating the dictionaries as they're working, doing terminology work while they're doing the translation, make it immediate apply. And it can be done. I've done it. This happens. And we've moved that task that was possible in the RBM system, the rule-based systems, all those features I just mentioned, all those articles, in our software reviews. We've moved it to become a computational linguistics task where you got to have special skills, you got to have special coding skills, and you got to be able to do training on the MT systems, on statistical-based systems with the Moses open source kit, MT kit. I mean, all this kind of stuff. And they become very specific skills that are needed to do machine translation, make corpus-driven machine translation training, which is different than the rule-based stuff. And so this took away the power from the people, the responsibility from the linguists and the translators who are doing the tasks of the translation, where they could use their terminology knowledge and skills to be able to just put it in the dictionary immediately. This is really easy to do. It's not rocket science. It's really easy to do if people are trained to do it. And again, there's not the training. People don't sell the training, and so and I've seen the people not get the training, and so that kind of thing. And that's why I always train people. I've given training session on how to do MT post editing at AMTA 2004. I gave a tutorial on this. Just said, folks, we got to get trained here. This is how to do it. It's not that hard. So this power, remove power and responsibility really has impacted the your feedback channel of improving the system immediately, which could be done with those rule-based systems and the software review that shown the software reviews, whereas you can't do it now with most of the statistical-based and the neural-based systems. They're trying to create new features to be able to do it, but it's still got to go through a training cycle. They've got some intermediate things and steps that can be done, but it's really been this has been a downfall, I say, a downside of the whole statistical side. And I'm not saying the statistical side isn't good. I'm just saying that it has its purpose in the certain types of content, but for a lot of the translation for publication stuff, it's just we got to take it a different way, folks. We got to do it a different way, and it can be done. And it doesn't always need to be the big, multi-million projects. Okay, multi-million word projects. This doesn't need to be. Another thing here, coming to the comment to someone else in the thread, I didn't get their name, but is terminology harmonization, terminology research, and this is really I would say that the vocabulary issue, the vocabulary issue of named entities, person, place, thing, is at the crux, at the center of the entire MT implementation need. And it's the crux of the problem. This has always been the case for every single type of different approach of machine translation. I've worked on them all. Okay, I've worked on them all. It could be rule-based. It could be example-based machine translation with the sexy name is translation memories. Knowledge-based systems. There are about 3 of them. Statistical MT, hybrid MT, multi-engine MT, now neural MT, and then hybrid and multi-engine of all these different systems or whatever. But again, the statistical-based and neural-based MT, what they did is they removed the linguistic analysis from the MT system. It became a probability kind of matching. And in the neural MT, it's like we're guessing how it's working, because we're not sure how it's working. Statistical MT actually had a lot more, kind of could kind of manage it more, but because it was just purely n-gram at a distance. But the neural MT has kind of added another layer of complexity to it. But because we removed that linguistic analysis that we had in the neural-based systems and in the knowledge-based systems, we've taken away the ability to actually manage it up front and to deal with dictionaries. Okay, just custom dictionaries. Okay, this is just basic, automotive and telecom and oil gas industry, and just be able to use that. And now the MT developers and the solution providers, they're trying to re-inject the linguistic analysis, this corpus-driven text analysis or language data mining or text analytics. There are lots of different terms here. I'm using terms that maybe most people aren't familiar with, but I work on this. And so this linguistic analysis of and I'll call this vocabulary overriding of an MT system. In the which we did a lot in the rule-based systems, you could actually prioritize your different dictionaries based on standard dictionary, and then you could have a domain specific dictionary, and you can have a custom specific customer domain dictionary in that specific field. This could all be done in the older systems. It couldn't be done in the current systems. And now they're trying to make features to be able to do that, but it's kind of slow and hard and needs a lot of work and all that. And I don't want to go into the details of this here, and so really this overriding effect of the vocabulary using dictionaries or glossaries or whatever call these things is really key to making really machine translation effective for outward translation for publication purposes, okay, where the high quality language is critical. It's just because it's your brand, it's just your reputation. And in the inbound stuff, it doesn't really matter content just because the vocabulary, like I said, the accuracy of the vocabulary item term answer is just not so critical. It's just not. I just want to give a full version of all this with examples, because this is true. It's not just an anecdote. It's not just like, off the top of my head, things that, my ideas and opinions. I mean, these are all published. A lot of stuff has been published, so it's just people just don't know about it. Or some of the stuff is confidential, so it can't be known about. It can't be, it's not released. But I'm trying to point to those that are released to kind of give information that it does exist, and these are not all using Google Translate. And another thing too is another point I didn't say, but the whole thing of people using Google Translate and Microsoft Translator, which are generic vanilla flavor systems, non-customized. They're trying to bring those into MMOQ or whatever, and pull them into whatever your favorite cat tool is, or machine translation memory system or whatever, or into interfaces that are made for for translation purposes. You're trying to import with APIs and bring it in, and what you're doing is you're pulling in non-customized translation systems into the software to be able to do it. But if you don't customize it with the dictionaries, you're not going to get the vocabulary. Those named entities, those nouns are really important. Proper names, vocabulary nouns. That's where the crux of the problem of the MT quality and the accuracy is, right there. And we're doing it ways that aren't allowing to customize, and that's another point. It's not just inbound, outbound. It's about custom. My localization world paper talk actually showed that the two things. There's two things of inbound, outbound. Inward, inbound versus outbound, outward. And then the other one is non-customized systems versus customizable. Those two factors are critical in trying to deal with this quality issue, and sometimes the quality is less. It's inbound. It doesn't really matter, but the outbound, it's really important. And being able to use a customized system, so you're just pulling this API of Google Translate and just using it. No, that's not going to work. You're not going to get the customized words. You've got to have it so you can override that with the dictionaries. And this is the thing that all the companies are kind of struggling with.